Well, now that we have the banner with the single target arts character on it, it would only be fitting for us to now release an AoE arts character, which seems to be a common theme every single summer, although while they do seem to get better and better every year, this is the first time where it's a little bit contentious, because Summer Ibuki is quite a good servant, and I know it's been a question for a lot of players, do I use the big dragon or the small dragon? And truth be told, they both have their ups and downs for when you want to use them, but irregardless of the situation, they're both going to do rather well. I mean, they're both pretty dang broken, as we're going to outline in this video for Malulu over here. However, if your primary concern going into this is, I already have Summer Ibuki, do I need Summer Melusine? Nah, if you've already got Summer Ibuki, you'll be fine. Or if you've already tricked out an insane arts AoE character, you took your Summer Kama to NP5, she's probably still going to be okay. She'll probably get the job done. But if you're looking for a good arts AoE character, or you just don't have somebody that can generally farm every node for you, then Summer Melusine might be on the menu. But with that being said, strap in and get comfortable, grab your favorite dragon plushie, or whip out your blue eyes white dragon, whatever you got that's close enough to Melusine or Albion. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, as I do put these videos out every single day to make sure that you are well informed on the goings-on both the NA and JP side of things. But enough yapping at the beginning, let's start diving into Melsussie's kit, starting off with her hits, of which she set up pretty nicely. As an arts character, rocking the double arts double buster does mean that she's got the nice balance of being able to refund rather well, while also being able to do some pretty nasty crits. And let me tell you, this character doesn't just loop, she also likes to do the nice cheeky crit every now and then, so having the double buster cards is actually pretty good for her. 0.42% NP gain might sound like it's not going to be enough, but trust me, this character is going to be able to do looping just fine. They gave her more than enough to get there. However, I would be remiss if we were talking about our hits and I didn't mention the 5-hit extra attack, which, if you're not in the know, maybe you just hopped into the game for this character in particular, let me put you on. The extra attack is a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage, and over here at ZTL Industries, 5 is the gold standard, although with the economy being the way it is right now, we might have to raise that standard up to 6 or 7 hits. Jury's still out on that one. But regardless, all of her hits are pretty solid. She's built and set up in a way that as long as her skills are halfway decent, this character could be pretty good, and spoiler alert, her skills are better than decent. Checking out her passive skills though, she's got some interesting stuff going on here. I mean, the debuff resistance from magic resistance is always going to be fine. Just the odd chance to negate some random debuff in a challenge quest or whatever advanced quest you're doing, that's always nice. The writing is kinda funny because she only has one quick card, but hey, that one quick card is rocking 5 hits, so extra refund and damage on that one, I guess, if that's what you're into. But the one that's kind of neat is the Fairy Knight C, which gives her 12% critical damage against man attribute enemies. So that is something you want to keep in the back of your head, that it's not quite a power mod, but if you're going into a boss fight where an AoE NP is generally not going to be as good because typically the boss has way more HP than all the other goons around them. So this does give her a way to do some really good damage against some of those bosses and make up for the lack of, single target damage that you're usually looking for in CQ. I also like to pull up the append skill whenever we go over the passives because some of these characters have pretty decent, anti-damage against people. For her, it's going to be against sabers, and because she's a ruler, you can effectively use her anywhere. This isn't bad to invest in, especially if you are one of those people that doesn't have a very good archer or, berserker to take out these saber guys for you. Then you can rely on Melusine to take those guys out. I would also say that her append 2 is also really solid because, spoiler alert, she has a rather massive battery that synergizes pretty well with a starting 20% gauge. And then obviously in the future, if you do have extra copies of Melusine Ruler, or you just have bonded her up to 15 or whatever, and you have the extra coins, the 4th one is also pretty notable because, again, this character does like to do some pretty nasty crits. So giving them a further 30% crit damage buff is just going to push them to even greater heights. But let's start moving into her skills properly. Starting off with skill 1, Fairy Pack A. Someone needs to pack this one up, because this is going to be giving her a 30% arts buff for 3 turns, 30% crit damage for 3 turns, a 30% power mod against chaotic aligned enemies for 3 turns, and it just gives everybody 1000 damage cut except herself for 3 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. That is doing quite a lot. For one, off rip, you can already see that we're starting to build up that crit niche there a little bit because we're just getting 30% free damage, which is already really strong. The 30% arts buff is pretty standard. It's just going to be giving her extra damage on our arts cards, which also includes her NP, and also buff the NP gain of said arts cards as well so she can loop a bit easier. But the chaotic alignment is interesting because she shares a primary power mod with Summer Ibuki, and this was one of the power creep discussions that was going on when she released, because now they not only share a power mod, but she has a bonus one. So if they were fighting an Earth-aligned enemy, but then they were also chaotic, then Melusine could eke out a little bit when it comes to damage. Or if they weren't fighting an Earth attribute person, but they happen to be chaotic, it just gives her a little bit more wiggle room for her already pretty decent damage. Although I would say she needs a little bit of extra wiggle room because she's not a berserker, she's a ruler. Most fights she's going in type neutral. Ibuki's going in most fights type super effective because she's a berserker, but I'll leave that discussion for people down in the comments. Or if people really want me to do it, we can do a whole comparison video putting them side by side. But I will bring these up as we go through the video. And then obviously the damage taken just makes your Castorias, your Tamamos, your Lady Avalons, or heck, even your Merlins if you want to have some really big buster crits for this character. Do whatever you want, frankly. It's just going to make them a little bit more tanky, which is always nice. Moving into her second skill, Azure Skyarms Mastery. Well, that's a pretty cool skill name. And it's going to be giving Chicken a bunch of different effects, depending on whether or not you're fighting on a water side or airspace battlefield. But do not misunderstand, even if you're not on those battlefield types, this is still a really strong skill. Because innately, it's going to give her star weight for 3 turns, that way she doesn't have to fight for any stars from any of your supports or other DPSs you'll have, and she'll be providing 10 stars every single turn for 3 turns, which is always really good on your arts crit servants, because they can have a harder time genning stars because, well, arts cards don't naturally generate stars. So it takes a little bit of the weight off of a 20-30 you might be using, or a Lady Avalon / Merlin, whoever you're using to provide stars. She's also going to be contributing a little bit, which is nice. But then if you're fighting on water side or airspace, you will then immediately gain 10 stars and get the additional refund of 20 more stars if you're on those. So you could be providing 30 stars, which is a little bit insane, while also having access to immediate stars as well. So you can kind of see it as more of a win more button. It's not really going to impact her in any super, major way. It's not like, oh, if you're not on these battlefields, the character doesn't work, but it is a pretty notable difference. I mean, if you're generating a boatload of stars every single turn, for over half of this low 5-turn cooldown, because this is up for 3 and it's only down for 2, I mean, that's going to make the fight a whole lot easier, especially with stuff like Mighty Chains and stuff, giving you an additional, 20% here and there, depending on what chains you're doing. That could be pretty easy. That could be a little nut-bustingly broken. But finally, we have her third skill, Blue Horizon. Now, what is this doing for Volley over here? Well, it's going to be giving her an 80% battery, 30% NP damage for 3 turns, and it's going to give her 2 hits of invincibility that last for 3 turns on a nice 6-turn cooldown. This is what I meant when it synergizes really well with Append 2, because you start off with 20%, you have an 80% battery, 20 plus 80, well, that's 100% right off rip. Now, you don't not necessarily want to do that because you want to dump all of Castoria's buffs onto her, which will get her to 100% anyway, but if you need to use Melusine as a side DPS in, say, a 90++ node, or you're just bringing her to, say, a challenge quest or advanced quest, where all she needs to do is take care of some of the background enemies, then it is rather nice that she's really self-sufficient. It also really matters in 90++s if she's your primary looper, that sometimes when you go against, say, a 1 enemy node, you might only refund 20-25% of your NP back. This ensures that she can power through those because she effectively has almost a full NP charge, which is ridiculously strong. And 30% NP damage, say it with me now, who is that synergizing with? It's the sussy Mothman himself. Between her 30% and his 20% on his quote-unquote charisma, you have a 50% NP damage buff on a character that is compliant with Black Grail. Yeah, the third skill with Oberon and this servant is going to go absolutely nuts to butts broken. And I did say I would bring up comparisons between her and Summer Ibuki as we went through, but this is a pretty big thing for Melusine, is that when you're using her with Oberon, she's going to get a lot more out of it than someone like Ibuki would, because she has her own native large NP damage buff, which means that her plus Oberon goes harder than it does with, say, Summer Ibuki. So that is at least a notable point for her there. All in all, her skills are pretty solid. Let's take a look at that NP, and oh my goodness, there it is. She's stacking crit damage 30% for 3 turns every time she fires this very spammable NP. Has the same power mod at Summer Ibuki at 150% against Earth attribute enemies, and then she's also stacking attack on her overcharge 20% for 3 turns, so not only is she doing stronger crits every time she fires this NP, but she's getting stronger through each node. So you might also notice as you're using Summer Melusine, her damage gets higher and higher and higher as she starts stacking that attack, culminating in 60% attack on the final node whenever you're doing a normal 3-turn farm, or if you're fighting a boss and you get to the final turn. Now, to give Summer Ibuki one benefit of the doubt against Melusine here, Ibuki's power mod goes from 150 to 200% depending on your overcharge, so technically she could be better against Earth-aligned people if, say, you're lining up your Castoria NPs to give her overcharge, or you're using Lady Avalon that can give her an overcharge stage on her charisma skill. Technically, she can be better against Earth attributes than Melusine, so that is a point for Ibuki depending on how you use her or depending on what the node is looking like. But focusing back on our good old chicken over here, her NP is quite good, and it synergizes really well with her kit. I mean, she's dropping all the stars she could ever want. She's stacking crit damage. She's stacking damage, rocking double power mods, got basically a full battery that gives her big NP damage. She has survivability, which it's not like that's something that Art's really struggled with in the first place. But hey, it really makes her hard to catch, and she also makes all of your allies really tanky. So there's not really any weak points in this character. They're just straight up really, really strong. They're just a powerful servant. I mean, even their bond CE is pretty interesting. It gives the entire party 20% critical damage, and then if you're on that waterside or airspace battlefield, screw it, take another 10%. So you could just be rocking up with a native 60% crit damage, maybe even 90% if you get her append 4, and then even cracking up over 100% just at baseline if that guy just happens to be man attribute. You can see where things can get a little out of control with Melusine. You can start doing some pretty schnasty crits. And that's why I said she's also not bad going into Challenge Quest or Advanced Quest, because even if, you know, you do ideally want single target damage on bosses because they just do more damage, even in those scenarios, Melusine will just say,
look, the NP damage might not hit you very hard, but I'm gonna start stacking this crit damage, I'm gonna start stacking this attack, and I'm just going to beat you with my bare hands. We are literally here to beat you to death.
But now here's the complicated part. Does this mean she's a must summon? Yes and no. It's really strange because she definitely is a character that is worth your Saint Quartz. If you summon for this character, she will put in the work for you. She's extremely strong. One of the better servants to come out this year. But Arts is in a really weird spot because their supports are so good that you can kinda get by with people that might not be as strong as Summer Melusine. For instance, I've just been pushing through on the JP side of things pretty much only using Arts characters because up until recently, that's all I really had. And even in the NP 1 to 2 range, people like Muramasa or Durga would be able to push through and beat all these nodes, and God forbid now that I have Summer Ibuki NP 2, they've been doing just fine over there. So even though you can argue that Summer Melusine would be an upgrade for my account, I would say I think I'm fine. I think I have all the people I need to really cover all my bases when it comes to Arts AoE damage, even as good as this character is. So I think you just need to look at your account, see what Arts AoE guys you got, and I mean, technically, you can look at your CQ type servants because she is pretty decent going into some boss fights. She's got good tools to really burst them down and do a lot of damage. And see if this is a servant that you need to summon for. If you're finding that you have a hole in your account, there's no real good Arts AoE character, then by all means, summon for this servant in good faith. I mean, you also get a chance to get Summer Barghest and Summer Sith, so you're not really losing too much, I feel, going on that banner. But if you've already got a bunch of really strong Arts AoE guys on your account, and maybe you don't care about Summer Barg or Summer Sith, you can afford to skip out on this banner, but it really depends on where you're at. Because this isn't someone like, say, Draco, who's a beast-type character, and those guys are super rare. At least right now, watching like 3 years, we have 75 beast characters, like we have 10 pretenders already. But it's not like she's fulfilling a niche so well that they're worth just cramming all of your Saint Quartz into. It's not like Draco locking down the 7 main classes. And she's not a crazy support like Castoria or Oberon, where if you don't have them, you're missing out on being able to fully utilize all of your other characters. So it's up to your discretion. Now, if you need help with that discretion, we do have a Discord link down in the description down below, where if I'm not able to take a look at your account, we'd have plenty of people there that would be glad to help you out, help you make that decision. Just don't rock up and say, guys, I have NP5 Summer Ibuki. Do I need Summer Melusine? We're gonna call you stupid. In good fun, though. We also have some other chats down there as well. If you're into stuff like Dokkan, the Hoyoverse games, Nikkei, stuff along those lines, we got all sorts of stuff in there. I guess while you're also perusing down in the description as well, you can also go check out that Twitch link or stay here on YouTube for the streams that happen every single weekday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday is FGO. Tuesday, Thursday is just other games. It's whatever I'm feeling like playing at the time, or if there's an event in another game that I need to grind for, then those will usually be on those days, and those are also kind of flex days that if I'm super tired, I might just kick off one of the Tuesday, Thursday streams. There's also a Patreon down in the description down below, where if you want to subscribe to the Patreon, you not only gain access to some exclusive Patreon content, but you also gain access to the Elite channel in the Discord, where you can influence videos that come out on the channel. Particularly on Fridays when FGO is not super busy, I'll go ask the patrons, alright, let's democratically decide on a video we want to put out. Stuff like some of the tier lists from a couple of months ago, the Babbage video, which I'm still just never going to let them live down. But that's only if you want to go the extra mile and that stuff sounds intriguing to you. It is by means not necessary. You don't have to do it. It's just there if you want. But I think with that being said, I'm done yapping. I think I've said my piece on the character, and we talked about everything in the outro here. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace late, guys.